Have you guys seen the protests, the high school students in Colorado?
Did not. What
You
happened?
did not? Did you?
Did not. Wait, hold on.
Wait.
Is this about the whole? Yes. Is this about the whole history being taught through it? Yeah.
All right. So a bunch of students. Okay. Before we even get to the topic of why they're protesting.
Well, it's history being taught through. Yeah. I already got it.
Yeah. Before we
Strong
get into
said
that.
so.
Here's the story. History. Yeah. They're protesting.
Whoa. Okay,
Yay or
tell me.
nay, how much would you love to have a student protest and get to walk out of school? If you're protesting your job, they can say, okay, I'm not going to pay you.
Right.
But these kids are like, I would have ditched school anyway. Like,
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
My high school had a protest, and I did not join.
What was your protest about?
If I remember correctly, it had something to do with immigration, but I felt like there was no. I didn't know why they were protesting. I think most kids were just like, "Hey, we don't have to go to school."
Exactly.
outside.
Okay, that's what I wanted to get
Yeah.
to. Is I'm curious on how many of these kids are like, sweet. I don't have to turn in my paper. I can have an extra 5 days or whatever if we keep protesting on my English paper. I'm sure some of the students are really sincere. So the reason why they're doing it is because they want to.
They want to learn.
They want to change the curriculum on history to teach both the positive and the negative sides of American history.
They just
I
want to
agree.
learn,
I
man.
think there's nothing wrong with that. But they're saying that they're sugarcoating history and they're not talking about the negative sides of American history.
Oh, you got to be freaking kidding me. You pull up any textbook, all we're going to hear about is, America went from slavery to driving the Native Americans off their land.
we started with driving Native Americans. Then we went to slavery.
drive the Native Americans back, then slavery. Then we drove the Native Americans back further. And then there was World War II, and we put all the Germans and Italians in prison camps. And now we're here.
No, you missed
Oh,
the
no,
part where we
civil
were
rights.
super
Civil rights.
homophobic and we hate everybody.
I said now we're here.
Oh, that's true. That's not. Well, okay, the concept.
So we're sugarcoating? That's sugarcoating?
Hold on.
Oh, I'd hate to hear what their version is.
Did you just summarize American history in the Drake song "Start at the Bottom" and now we're here? Is that what I just heard? Do you guys know this song?
I don't
I
even
have
think
no
he
idea
knows who
what-
Drake is.
I don't. Who is Drake?
Don't worry about it. Move on.
So I don't know what their curriculum is specifically. What are the negative things that you learned about in school, Strauss? Because you were in public school.
The negative things?
Yeah, what, like off the top of your head, what are the negative things did you learn about?
Child labor during the Industrial Revolution. And
Trail
how-
of Tears.
Yep, Trail of Tears. Obviously, slavery.
I mean, I learned about Columbus, like slaughtering a bunch of Native Americans. I mean, I would venture to say that I feel like I did learn some. I think the one thing was they definitely, in my experience, they didn't like put kind of a human face on the founding fathers. They kind of just showed their accomplishments as written by them rather than like humanizing them and like telling me more about who they were as people.
I'd have to disagree with that. From my personal experience, my history teacher was actually pretty good about making them, people, and humanizing them.
There's not a whole lot of U.S. history stuff that's negative that like at least we don't know about. Like, what do these kids really want in particular? Are they?
I mean, to a little argue with this, from my experience, the good parts of U.S. history were kind of just glossed over. Yeah, we had this thing called the Roaring '20s, and things were really successful. But then it was like the Great Depression,
Right.
and it was really bad in the Dust Bowl. And here, read
But
Grapes
but
of Wrath,
how do you?
'cause that's
teach-
what your kids want to do.
But that's the thing is like, how do we? What did you learn about the Great Depression? Because I learned about the New Deal. Like I learned, it was really, really tough, but luckily government came in and fixed it all. Yeah, I think there's a little bit of sugarcoating. I think the teacher specifically has a little bit to do with that. But the one thing that I would say is there has to be a balance, because you don't want to not learn about the valuable principles that makes America great, and only learn about the things that were the black eyes on America. You know what I mean? Because if you just learn about slavery, then you won't really appreciate the fact that America as a country, between the founding to the emancipation, was one of the shortest amount of times any country has ever eliminated slavery from their society. You know what I mean?
Yep. And it's we can teach about slavery and everything, and I mean people you hear some of the negatives, like people always go to, oh, the Constitution. Oh, yeah, the 3/5 clause. There were only 3/5 of a person. Well,
You don't understand how the 3/5 clause was intended to work.
actually
anyway.
came to happen. Yeah, we don't understand that there were people fighting against them, against slaves being counted at all. And the reason for it was that the slave states would have a greater number of representatives and that they would never get the slave laws enacted. So the abolitionists were actually saying, no, slaves should count as zero. So
And-
guys like
yeah.
Ben Franklin, Gouverneur Morris, were all saying, no, slaves count as zero. You don't count them. And it also forced them to say, well, hey, listen, are they people or are they property? If they're property, don't count them at all. And if they're people, then set them
Right.
free and give them a vote.
Because at the time, what people don't realize is that the southern states were pressuring a federal law to go through to force the northern states to capture and return escaped slaves. Northern states didn't want to do that, and so they were like, well, if we forfeit our Congress to the southern states by allowing them to count every slave as a vote for,
Right.
for
Well,
Congress, then we lose and we are forced to return these slaves that are now free in our states. So it's a lot more complicated, I guess, is my point.
Right.
Than some of it was taught.
Well, and the point
But-
I'm making is that we say, like, oh, yeah, American history from the Constitutional Convention till the Civil War was defined by slavery. What about all the great abolitionists? What about John Quincy Adams literally dying on the floor of Congress fighting for abolition of slavery?
Right.
There was great things happening during the slave period. Let's talk about it all. And there were horrible things happening during the slave period. Let's talk
Right.
about it all. So if they really want the positive and the negative, yeah, I'm all for it. But it sounds like they want to turn it even more negative than it is now, which to me is already more negative than it actually
Right.
probably is. Maybe not more negative than it is, but just focusing on the negatives.
I would be curious to sit in a class about German history in Germany when they talk about World War II. Like, I'm curious on how they teach it.
I have heard from, and I had a German exchange student live with me, and I've heard from them or from her, that they basically say, oh, well, most people didn't really know what was happening.
Which
But
I would venture to say that's true,
I
but they knew that something was happening. They just didn't know what was
they knew
happening.
something was happening. They knew that their neighbors were getting put in
Camps.
camps, and then they were getting forced into trains, and that they were never being seen again. People knew that.
But they didn't question anything.
Well,
Right.
maybe they didn't want to know.
I guess
But
my point with that is that, like, something that horrible is overlooked. It depends on how much like. I'm curious on if they really push it to say we don't want this to ever happen again in Germany. Just like we talk about slavery in America in a way where we definitely don't want anything like that to happen again. I mean, not even a century ago, we didn't put people into slavery, but we sure as heck put them into internment camps. Even though a lot of most of them were U.S. citizens, they weren't even Japanese citizens. So, I do think it's an important thing to teach, but it's perspective matters. Like, who put them into internment camps, and for what reasons? Was it society because Americans are racist, or is it because of like government
it was.
intrusion, or like understand that? Let's try to understand.
Let me answer that question just real quick, Adam. It was FDR and Woodrow Wilson, and because they're evil pieces of crap. There you go. That's your who and why.
But I don't know. I think that it's I support the concept of getting like a well-rounded perspective on U.S. history.
Is that
be
the whole?
awesome.
Is that the whole of this story? They're just saying, yeah, we just want history taught with less sugar.
The
Censorship. That's what they're worried about.
yeah,
An
they're-
idea. I can quote this real quick. It says an idea is to censor U.S. history so that they cannot talk about some of the negatives, or they don't want to talk about the civil disobedience, which is censorship. And censorship. So essentially, they're saying that like they're teaching things as like revolutionary or whatever, but they're not teaching them as like this is civil disobedience. Debbie Villard,
Oh, I was going to guess Wasserman Schultz.
a junior at one of the high schools, she said the Declaration of Independence was an act of civil disobedience, which you
Yeah.
could say, yeah, for sure.
Yeah, for sure.
So I don't see anything wrong with saying that, but you have to teach it in context.
Mm-hmm.
You can use civil disobedience, but it comes with consequences. You could get thrown in jail.
Not to wax all churchy on you and everything, but favorite stories of civil disobedience, they knew the consequences. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego knew they were going to get chucked into a fiery furnace, and Daniel knew he was going to the lion's den. But both of them said, no, this is absolutely where I draw the line. I don't worship false gods. I'll pray how I want to. Those are two things that are worth standing up for and being civilly disobedient. And they did. And that was literally was civil disobedience. They were disobeying the king, and he was the government.
Right.
And in that story, they weren't out rioting or
No, they weren't
killing
turning-
people or,
Abednego was turning trash cans over, and,
it was just like, no thanks.
And
Yeah.
from what it seems like so far, this has been a really civil protest. There hasn't been anything severe. They're just not attending class, and they're holding signs on the street and kind of voicing their opinion. But it's been several schools have picked it up, apparently.
for history to be taught the right way.
Which I think is kind of cool.
It is kind of cool, but it sounds like they're going the wrong direction with it as far as what history is being taught. But you know what? I'm not in Colorado. I'm not in their classroom.
Yeah,
I don't know what they're
their
saying.
curriculum
So,
is. So
hey, you know what? If they're actually saying, yeah, we want real history, and they end up getting real history, good for you guys.
yeah,
great.
and I think one of the best things that you can do is, like, I'm a parent, so I can look forward to this kind of circumstance. Is to be engaged in your kids' study material, so that you can know what they're learning. I'm just saying, it's a crazy idea. It's a crazy idea, I know, but to just know what your kids are learning, I think is valuable.